Welcome to the bottom of it with your host Josh Moriarty.
Welcome back to the bottom of it for 2017. Hello, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. I don't know if everyone got a holiday. Do you get a holiday? I don't. I got no idea. Hey, today's episode is with Jordan Blilie from the Blood Brothers, Head Wound City, and also Past Lives. I mean, I know him mostly from the Blood Brothers, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. They're incredible. You need to listen to them if you haven't. They're the sort of band that will really piss your parents off. It's a cacophonous melee of madness. I love polarizing music. I love chaotic music. I love extremely impassioned music, and that's what the Blood Brothers did. They had all of those elements. Head Wound City is the latest project that he is involved with. A bit of an all-star lineup for that band. They've put out one record. They put it out in 2016. It's called A New Wave of Violence. So we got together in LA. We had a chat about that. We had a chat about his musical history, growing up playing music in Seattle, working with Ross Robinson. He's a legendary producer. We talk politics, we talk life, we talked it all. So yeah, here you go. Jordan Blilie, one of my heroes, I think. It was a real honor to talk to him. Here you go, enjoy.
What else? And in order to be successful in the music industry, you have to think that your band is the greatest band and be telling everyone about it.
Sure.
All of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think with you guys, with Blood Brothers, this is just an observation, but I imagine you were very young when that started, and you would have had that passion and that drive at that time. And then once it fizzles out, like you can't maintain, especially with a band like that though, which is so fucking intense, like one of the most intense bands there is.
Yeah. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, it is, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can't do that forever. And then and since then, like, have you had that? Do you feel you probably have the same passion, but maybe not the same sort of youthful naivety to push that hard?
Yeah, because when you're that young, you just do it.
You just do it.
You just do it, and we started that band when we were 15, 16 years old, and we were very fortunate that where we grew up in Seattle, we had a very healthy all ages music scene, and then touring bands would always come through. And we had amazing local bands as well. So we, when we started our band as teens, we were able to quite quickly play shows, and we would just play all the time.
Just all around Seattle?
Yeah, and there were a handful of places to play. There's really a wealth of places to play that we could play as 16-year-olds. And
is this sort of a punk scene or something, or a hardcore scene?
So there was a community center.
Like a Christian sort of place?
No, it was like a city run. It was an old YMCA that turned into it was called the Old Firehouse. It was just a teen drop-in community center, and they had shows. And this was like in the suburbs, like on the east side of Seattle, where we all grew up. So there was this venue that already had after-school programs for kids. So our parents had no problem, dropping us off there whenever we wanted to go to shows. And the all-ages scene was so robust at the time. This was mid-late 90s, that touring bands would come through and play that community center rather than like a bar like in Seattle. So it's like we would see stuff like we would see everyone there. It'd be like the first show that I went to, there was Jawbreaker, Blonde Redhead, Unwound, Rocket from the Crypt, Quicksand, on and on and on and on, like Neurosis. I saw Neurosis there. And then at the same time, all the local bands would play there. And at the time, it was like Modest Mouse, Murder City Devils, Botch.
Botch are from Seattle.
They were from Tacoma, but they'd always, it was like 45 minutes away, so they were always playing in Seattle. And there was just this very, very vibrant, all ages punk hardcore scene. So you could we would play there all the time. We would play basements. We would play, church basements. We would play
while still at high school.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you care about school as much, or did you just end up?
I did. Yeah. I've always done worked really hard at school. And at the time, that was part of why my parents had no problem, letting me in. I have a twin sister who also plays music.
Yes.
And they had no problem, with us going weeknights, 2 shows in a weekend because, we were keeping our grades up. So, there's obviously no...
Did your parents play music at all?
My mom is a elementary school music teacher.
Right.
And she has been for 30 plus years.
Okay.
And so they valued music and they valued the arts. And so it was just growing up in that, like I said, we were just able to plug right in. There was, the infrastructure was there, and the support was there, and we were playing with bands that we looked up to, and
that makes you so much better very, very quickly.
Well, yeah, because you're playing with bands that are way better than you.
Yeah.
And you're a kid and you're so impressionable, and you soak everything up, like a sponge, and so quickly, and you're pulling from all of these influences. And then when you're able to play with people that you look up to, you're looking not to embarrass yourself, first and foremost, and then it becomes very empowering. And to have people ask you to open their show, as a 17-year-old. I mean,
yes.
there's nothing better. And so we were able to just to grow that way. And
but
then
it doesn't sound to me like that. The sound of your band was stealing from anyone or anything. It's still a very original. Like the Blood Brothers is an extremely original sound to me. Is there things I'm missing? I can hear pieces of things everywhere, of course, but as a whole, because of the sound of your voice and of Johnny's voice, and then someone like Morgan who just is a kind of a freak.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing by itself.
I think it was, the first records that we did, I think, to me, the influences are more obvious than subsequent records. It was a lot of like early Rye Coalition, Swing Kids, Drive Like Jehu, Mon Orchid, Jesus Lizard, just a whole grab bag of just punk stuff, basically. And I think, though, because Mark, our drummer, didn't come from, primarily punk or hardcore. He was more into hip hop, informed his playing. And then Morgan, like you said, is just a freak. But he, he listened to tons of dub and tons of jazz. And so to me, it's the rhythm section that they were our foundation, and they were so phenomenal. And I don't feel like I'm bragging, because it wasn't me. It was I just got to scream over it. But it's like when you have those two as your foundation, it opens everything up. And we were 5 very, very different personalities. We had, and you know, the songs represented the weird point of convergence where we could all agree, because it was very democratic.
It's funny that that's the agreement. Is that?
Yeah, that was like the point of agreement, you know, and it is really funny because when you listen to it, you're like, what?
Yeah.
But the other funny thing is though that when you're in it, and we practice quite a bit.
Well, you have to, to keep that set, to be that tight with those changes and things. You have to be rehearsing all of the time.
But when you're that in it, you're occupying this mental space where it doesn't seem as freakish to you.
No, that's
when
very
you're
true.
in it.
Yeah,
but then now listening to it, pretty further removed, I just find myself scratching my head at points where I'm thinking, what?
How did we do? Why?
Or just what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Why? Why did we do that? Why would we ever decide to put that part there? I think.
But that's what's so beautiful about it is that like I said, that youthful naivety, and because you're so encompassed in that that thing, it was like nothing else. You just do. Yeah, your sense of inhibitions is quite different than as a 30-year-old, as a 35-year-old. And you're all egging each other on as well.
Yeah, and the things that you'll try, we would very much want to. If something felt too straight, we'd want to fuck it up.
Well, that's very punk rock.
For better or worse.
Yeah, that's what it's like when you're that age.
Yeah,
you can't really
like,
write pop music.
Yeah, and there's a lot of chin scratching and just a lot of back and forth, and sometimes we would just labor on a song for way too long. But my favorite ones are the ones that came together super quick and felt more effortless and spontaneous, and we, and those ones were really special to me because those, I'm sure you've experienced the same thing when everyone just clicks and locks into something, and it's a very transcendent feeling when five very different people can lock into something immediately, and then the song's done in 5 minutes. Yeah,
it rarely happens.
Yeah.
And then there's the ones you spend 2 years on sometimes. And you still never quite get it right.
And then we had guys in the band that were very disciplined archivists of like our practices and stuff, and there's always that dreaded moment when someone pulls some idea out that you're hoping that everyone has forgotten. And you're like, no, why are we working on this again?
Is anyone in Blood Brothers the person pushing the hardest to move it forward, or
Morgan? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's interesting for me. You are the constant through Blood Brothers to Past Lives to Head Wound City. You've been the one person who has been in every one of those bands. Where there's been comings and goings of the rest of Blood Brothers throughout that. So I thought perhaps it might have been you.
No.
Do they rope you into these things?
If it were up to me, everything would be in like 4/4.
Okay.
and simpler.
Well, Past Lives is kind of like that, though, isn't it? That was definitely...
There was some tricky stuff, but it was much simpler than Blood Brothers for sure.
Was that sort of a reaction? Just it seems to me like it's kind of a breath of fresh air for you guys, or something, or a reaction or experimental thing after doing 10 years of Blood Brothers to go and do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much so. We wanted more than anything. I think we just wanted space and breathability in the songs.
Yeah.
And you know, part of that is just with the Blood Brothers having two singers, it opens you up to a lot of stuff, but it also there's the flip side of it where we paint ourselves into a corner where it's like, okay, how are we going to fit two people in here? So
was that must be difficult. Well, you two must have had to be very, very close.
We had moments of disagreement for sure, and we were both very, very strong-willed. I think everyone in that band.
It sounds like it.
And at that age too, you're at the age where everything is you're staking your claim in every single music decision. There's the idea of ownership is very important, I think, when you're like in your early 20s.
Of course.
I think that collaboration was, for me, it was 90% positive. It was
That's a pretty good percentage.
The batting average was very high as far as
Would you sit down and write your lyrics together? Is that how it would work?
Most of it would start with Johnny.
Right.
He would have the initial idea, and then it would be a back and forth, and then some gelling and voila. But he had a very sharp ear for hooks, and he can think of them immediately.
Yeah.
So a lot of it would be in the writing process. He would just think of a hook, and then I would follow him.
Okay.
It was always great when he would hand me, what he was thinking for a song, because it was always so bizarre and left field. But for what we were doing, it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
And, the personality that he would create for every song was, I just loved.
That's amazing. The voices, the characters, the lyrics are fucking terrifying.
And I think that he was, it would go a few ways. Like sometimes we'd talk about, what he had in mind. Sometimes we didn't need to, and I would just lock in and write my parts to it. Sometimes we would sit in, one of our cars together while the band, got started on practice, and we'd go over singing parts that we were going to do to like these new songs that we were working on that day. And I always loved what he came to the table with. It was really fun to try to write to, because it forced me to push as hard as I could creatively, because he was in a constant state of creating. There wasn't, if we were on tour, he'd be writing in the van like all day. Just constantly writing. So he always had something that he could pull from. My process was a lot more deliberate. I need very specific conditions. I need peace and quiet, and to be kind of tucked away and work things out like very methodically.
Do you still have that same sort of drive as you did back then?
Yeah, I'm a real perfectionist when it comes to writing lyrics and whatever singing parts I put to the songs. I'm pretty meticulous about it. And with the Headwind City stuff, it was really fun because the songs lent themselves so easily to hooks that it was the quickest that I've written.
Right.
But and it was the easiest as far as production and just sort of getting inspired. And I think it was probably because I was, the most I guess, sure of myself in the sense that you just become more confident in who you are as you get older.
Yes, of course.
You know, I can just write and you know, I don't the circles and sort of the haranguing, the mental kind of doubt and all those things, they've kind of dissipated by the time.
That's very nice to
hear.
You
know, I was, you know, working on the Headwind City stuff this time around.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a different lyrical thing that, you know, I listened through that album last night. I've listened quite a few times, but I sat with the lyrics, and I guess it's interesting seeing it more from your take. You're saying that Blood Brothers was more Johnny.
Yep.
Came up with those ideas, seeing your spin on observing life.
Sure, yeah. I tend to be more blunt.
There's some biblical things in there.
Yeah, because it's the best imagery. It's you know, it's really it's powerful, timeless imagery. And it's also, you know, I grew up, my mom has played organ in her church for 30 something years.
Yeah.
And so we had to go to church on Sundays. It was non-negotiable. I'm not religious, but probably because I had to go to church every Sunday.
Yeah, right. Do you end up becoming quite anti it? Is that what happens?
Yeah, I mean,
I think living in this country,
if you're forcing teens to, like, you know, cut their sleepover time on the weekends in half, you know, you're not going to pull them to your side. But yeah, the imagery is just has always stuck with me, and it's always you know, in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that in the Blood Brothers too. I think though that it got there was a lot of crazier stuff piled on top of it. Mm-hmm. So it kind of got lost in the shuffle.
So is Headwind City, are you guys doing it hard and doing it proper, or is it a bit more
as hard as we were willing to go, you know, with
is everyone involved with other things, or is it
like JP and Gabe have JP, Gabe and Cody, you know, and Nick, they're always working on something.
Yeah,
you know, JP, I don't even know how many bands he's in, but yeah, everyone has other bands. You know, Gabe and I have kids, and none of us are really willing to be away on tour for extended periods of time.
It's a young man's game, or young woman's game.
It just very much. It's weird because you get to a point in your life where you're like, I don't need to do that. Whereas, you know, there's a long stretch in my life where I couldn't imagine not doing it. Uh-huh. It would make me depressed for someone when I saw that they weren't doing it anymore. I'd be like, oh man, that must suck.
I've been,
you know, and then when it happens to you, it's not. There's not, you know, there wasn't the same sense of mourning. You know, I wasn't like, oh, this is really sad. I was just like, I just have other priorities in my life. You know.
Yeah, so many people dropped off the rock and roll radar as the years went by, and I was the same. I'd always go, oh, why they should still be.
Yeah.
But nah,
no.
you can't. I feel like you've got until 30 to really cement some band or career or thing, and then after that, it should be starting to get a little bit easier, where the money's better. The touring might still be intense, but at least it's building toward, like, you're becoming U2 or Coldplay or something, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, and you get to this age and you have to start your new band or your new project, and they're telling you you've got to go out on the road, and you just don't have the energy for it.
Yeah,
anymore.
And there's a point where it just feels more sad than anything, and that's why I just like to keep it on a hobby level. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't be disappointed when you think of it as just something extracurricular that you plug into your life in a way that that is more comfortable and, you know, more with a sense of balance. And so that's kind of, you know, we certainly took this record more seriously than, you know, the first time around. But, you know, we did some touring, and, you know, we did a proper, you know, couple weeks in the studio. I was in the studio forever.
Right. With Ross.
With Ross, yeah.
Ross Robinson, ladies and gentlemen.
When we first started, you know, it had been like 13 years since I'd worked with Ross.
Had you been friends with him throughout that time, or?
I'd lost touch. Cody had kept in closer touch with him, not in like any sort of like acrimonious like losing touch.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Just, you know.
Yeah, no, I know how that is.
You just lose touch with people, but coming back to his place and doing it with him again, it was phenomenal, because, you know, the first record I'd done with him, I was 20, and then
burn piano.
Yeah, and then
gotta keep the
keep the context. Yeah. So we did Burn Piano Island Burn when you know, I was just out of my teens, and then doing a record with him when I'm an adult, and you know, my wife was expecting our first kid. It was an amazing difference as far as approach and where I was at mentally.
He pushes your buttons, doesn't he? That's his thing.
Yeah, I think,
maybe depending on who you are.
His reputation sort of precedes him. With the Blood Brothers, he pushed 0 buttons.
Right. Because you guys were ready to go.
Yeah.
Your buttons
we
were pressed.
We didn't need any extra motivation, and I think he could sense very early on that approach was not going to work with us, because we were very insular, and we were very set in our ways.
Yeah.
And so it was with that band, it was a lot more coaxing than actual, you know, any sort of like confrontational tactics that he's kind of known for.
Yes.
He does push you, but in my experience, it's always been the best way possible, and it's like, so for example, with this Headwind City record, you know, I was between semesters in school, so I had some time off, and you know, he asked me, you know, what are you doing? What are your obligations? I'm like, well, I'm you know, between, you know, I've got a few months before I start up school again. He's like, great, just come over here every day, and we're going to get your voice in shape like you've been on tour for, you know, like a month. And I was like, okay. And that's what we did. We just, you know, I would go over there and...
Well, yeah, your voice sounds great on that.
But it's from going over... Thank you.
It sounds developed, though. It really does.
And it was just from going over there like every day for like...
I think there's also a sense of being older and maturity is...
Yeah, you know know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you know, there were moments, though. I mean, that's a long time to be going somewhere every day and singing your record.
Screaming a lot of it.
Yeah, that many times. But he, you know, it took a lot of just kind of, you know, trust in, you know, knowing that he was looking for something in particular. And, you know, you can't really see it. It's hard to have much perspective when you're in the middle of it, but I personally think it's the best that I'm happiest with how I sound on that recording than I think anything that I'd done prior. And we just had the time, and there was no pressure, because we didn't, you know, we didn't have a label or anything. We, you know, he didn't have any sessions
that
he needed to get to, so it was like this total luxury of being able to go over to his place every day. And, you know, we just fell into a routine, and
I love it when it's like that.
It's great.
Like,
I mean, it
coming
was
at a particular time and
it
you
was
have your
great.
coffee
and then I've always loved, you know, I feel like so much of, you know, I've always thought of being the singer. You go last. You know, you're the last to go, and the band has given you all this music, and it's your job to reciprocate. You know, and so I was really anxious for everyone to hear it, because, you know, I loved the idea of, you know, here's our record, it's done, like voila, and yeah, it was just a really great process, but he did push me for sure.
What else? So what else have you been doing? You're studying?
I'm in school right now, so I go to UCLA, and I'm finishing getting the English degree that I never got,
right?
Because I dropped out of school the first time to do Blood Brothers, and I've always tinkered with the idea of going back, and you know, having our first kid. I just really wanted to have that checked off.
Yeah.
And so I'm almost done. I have just a few quarters left to go.
And then what happens after that?
I don't know. I have a degree, and I can. The idea is that I will be more employable, but we'll see.
But is there a particular sort of field that you're looking to get into, or? Well,
I love writing. I would love to still be doing something creative,
obviously, yeah.
And so we'll just I'll just kind of have to see what's out there. But I wouldn't mind teaching either. But writing is what I'd really love to do.
I notice a lot of people from around that time, myself included, when the screamy, crazy bands broke up, everyone got in the club, started making electronic music and making pop music.
Yeah.
And you haven't, well, as far as I know, haven't gone in that direction at all. Did it ever interest you? Were you ever?
I don't have the skill set for it. I don't have the voice for it. And like I look at like a computer, and my stress levels just start to rise. It's nothing that I ever really thought about, to be honest. I know that Cody does a lot of like remix stuff, and he does dancier stuff. But I'm just not that technologically inclined. I'm much more pen to pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not Instagramming Headwood City and tweeting and all of that?
I do that, but that's like, that's easy.
Yeah.
But like if you were to set me in front of, you know, whatever instruments it takes to make electronic music, I wouldn't have any idea what to do. I could maybe turn it on.
Okay, so it's just it's just because you don't do it.
Yeah, I don't even own my own microphones or anything.
Really?
You know,
So you don't have a home setup as much? Not really, right?
No. I just have, I have like, you know, our kitchen table where I write, and that's always been, I guess, my contribution to music is just lyrics and singing. And I like the storytelling aspect of it, and I just love storytelling.
Is that what it is? Like, what is it that keeps you motivated to continue to do this? Is things just coming to you in your head? Like, what drives you?
No, it's like I don't write lyrics independent of having a certain song that I have to write to, and so it's just I've always playing like punk and hardcore music. It's just a very comforting space for me, and I've always loved that energy release, and then
it's kind of, for me, when I was in those sorts of bands, it's like playing sports or something where you smash up against people. Yeah. It's a way to get out all of those emotions.
But then the other side of it that is also very much like sports is the camaraderie. Mm-hmm. And
Absolutely.
you know, the feeling of, you know, being part of something. Like you're part of like a little gang.
Yeah.
And you have you have your own idiosyncratic ways of communicating, and you have, you know, a whole language of inside jokes and stuff that go back, you know, years and years. And it's very fulfilling to, you know, I always love like putting a band together, you know, like, okay, like these are the people that I want to play with. These are the people that I think that are the best at what they do. Let's see what, you know, let's see if there's some chemistry there. And I love all the kind of nuts and bolts of getting together in a room and creating, you know, with people, you know, the sort of sense of purpose and the whole process. I love, you know, having a project to work on where it's like, okay, we got to write a batch of songs, and then we need to get artwork together, and need to write lyrics, and, you know, this, that, and the other. I love the focus that it takes, and, you know, sort of the sense of hive mind, you know, where everyone is just very focused on this one thing together.
Yeah, I mean, see, I love music and that process, and then it's just when the music industry starts becoming involved in it really can rub me the wrong way when it comes to promotion and like I was talking about having to be fulfilling your social media obligations. And I think sort of like you have. Yeah, it just depends what you want out of it. Because like you're saying, if it's just about the camaraderie and your friends and getting together and creating the art, then once you're done, you sometimes almost just don't even care about.
Well, yeah, and that's why this band is so great, because there's no real, when you don't have any real goals attached to it as far as, you know, growing a fan base or really anything other than getting together and making the thing and playing some shows. When you keep it on the level of just putting one foot in front of the other, then there's no real way to be thoroughly let down or disappointed. And that's what you know, it certainly helped, you know, the Blood Brothers sustain for as long as we did, where it was, you know, we were so in it as far as, okay, we just need to, you know, the goals, they were like micro goals, you know, we need to do this. It was never big picture. So we were always just more surprised by things, you know, we're like, oh, we're in Norway now, like playing a show, huh? This is trippy, you know. So I guess when you just, it's just a realignment of how you see things, I guess, where if you have zero goals. If you don't aim high, then there's nowhere to fall, really. What a great life lesson.
I remember when I was a kid, Green Day came to New Zealand, and what's his name, the Billy Joel Armstrong or whatever, said something. People go, "What should we expect of the show?" The interviewer interviewed me, goes, "Don't expect much, and then you won't be disappointed." Yeah. And I was probably about 14 years old, and I went, "Oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it?" And then the older I've gotten, I'm like, "Oh, it actually makes sense." Yeah, I've never forgotten
because it's like, you know, you can be pleasantly surprised, or you're just like, that was a thing, and just kind of move on.
Do you? Is there something that you haven't done yet? Is there a final goal, a destination, a project, or is it just going to be? You know, do you just keep doing this happily along the way?
You know, there was stuff that I did that I that I was hoping to do with this band, like I really wanted to play shows like overseas again. I really missed
with
that.
Headwind City?
Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
It's just the scheduling stuff it's like a Rubik's Cube with the five of us, and
have to deal with that.
And then also it's like I think that there has to be people asking you to go to these places, and absent of that, we're not really willing to just like.
Well, yeah, you don't have that drive like we're talking about anymore to put that tour together. You want a promoter to go, oh, we'd love you to come to Australia, we'll pay you this much money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when you're younger, you would make those things
absolutely.
happen.
Because you just do all of it.
Yeah.
And you don't really think twice about it. But when you get older and you have really very real things that you need to consider every time you travel or are away from your family for a night, I
just think you have also more respect for your mental health as you are older, like the touring, the depression and anxiety and all of those things.
You're less willing to subject yourself to those things.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
That stuff has been terrifying at points.
It gets it does get there are aspects of it that are that very much are not in line with proper mental health for sure.
Do you think? I'm interested to know what you think. Why humans in general create music, or what it is they are offering to society as a whole? What's the?
Well, I think that it's a way to process the times in which we live. There's a therapeutic aspect to it. There's the need to feel like you're being heard. I think that's a very basic human need.
We can definitely see that with the rise of social media, the extent of it, that everyone does want their voice to be heard now.
Yeah. I think that there's the desire to, I think the desire to create is a very, I would say, innate desire. People do it. People find myriad of outlets through which to do it, but just the basic need to make something, I think is inborn in. I would assume just the majority of us.
Yes.
I think that there's certainly there's a level of ego to it, but in the sense that you want to. There's ego, and then there's also a sense of sort of immortality or mortality.
I definitely agree.
That you're dealing with in that you want to leave something behind.
Yeah, Beyonce's got it more than most.
Yeah.
Or Taylor Swift or someone. They're more obsessed with creating that.
You want something that's going to be there when you're gone. And then there's the need to connect with people. It goes hand in hand with that need to be heard, but just knowing that there are like-minded people out there that see things the way that you do, and that
that's
you can come together.
You say that, actually, because I think about when I was 10 years ago or whatever, when I would have been in my early 20s. That's what Blood Brothers was for me.
Sure.
It's like
Yeah.
no one else really got it. Me and the guys in my band and a few other people. It's like there's these guys from the other side of the world that are. They're throwing their message in a bottle across the ocean, and
that's awesome.
We caught it, and like it actually really meant so much.
That's
to
awesome.
Us. Yeah. So I guess that's, and I you know, when you make your own music, you doubt the influence that you would be having on people. Like you're saying, you're so in the thing that you don't think about it, but it really can like change people's lives, and that really did mean so much to us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's certainly, like, I remember that experience from my, you know, early teens all through, you know, my 20s, where, you know, you find something, you know, like a band that you and just your friends just get so heavily into, and it brings you together, and it makes you feel like you're having this very kind of private experience with, you know, 2-3 of your closest friends, and, you know, this band that you all connect with, and that I think is extremely powerful, and I've certainly felt that with a handful of bands throughout the years, and you know, when it's funny, sort of like the sense of ownership it creates, you know, where you feel like you feel like, you know, this band belongs to me and the few other people that get it.
Yeah.
You know,
when you played at the Corner Hotel in Melbourne, in Australia.
Yeah.
And Jono is a really close friend of mine. I play in another band with them. He went up to Cody, I think, after the show, and he's like, "Your band changed my life." And Cody's like, "Oh, thanks, man." He's like, "No, you don't understand, bro."
Yeah.
But it's that when people say that stuff to you, you know, and there's a few people who said that with Miami Horror, the band that I play, and they go, "Oh, your album's meant so much." Or, you kind of, "Oh, thank you," but you can't ever really see it.
Yeah.
But then I have to think about when I was a kid and what bands did that for me, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying."
Yeah, I mean, well,
it's weird though, because you want people to say that to you. You're making this message, and you want them to understand it, and then when they do, you still kind of like, don't.
It's a hard, you know, because it's such a fundamentally huge thing to say to someone.
Yes,
you know,
course.
And I sometimes I would trip out on just the idea of someone, you know, having the experience of, we're gonna go to like the Blood Brothers show on Friday, and I would think about that sometimes when I was in like the van or something, and I'd be like, wow, like someone like planned like their week around like seeing this show, and they talked to their friends about it and were excited about seeing it, and you know, in just in what that would mean, you know, for me and my friends when we would hear that a band was finally, you know, coming to our city, and how you just have this big like X on your calendar, like counting it down, and it's a very humbling, it's a very
there's a lot of expectation on you a little bit as
well. Yeah, but more than anything, it's just it's humbling, and it's gratifying, and it always meant a lot just to think like, oh, okay, like someone's been looking forward to this, you know, and talking about it with their friends, and are excited to see, you know, this show tonight. You know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think with you know what the career you've had and the bands and the people you've played with, I mean, especially the Blood Brothers, you made a thing like that. You can die, and I think you have left behind.
You
guys left behind some fucking totally unique, crazy thing that no one else had done, that's inspired a lot of people
That's great.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, that's and so anything else you do from this point, you're going to love it. But it's like there's something there anyway. Now you can only try and top it, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like I look back on that time with a lot of fond memories because a lot of it is like we were saying, just the age we were at, and just sort of being young and being able to do something with people you grew up with. I've known Johnny since I was 12.
You guys still close?
Yeah, I mean, like we live in different cities. I just texted him yesterday. But we're not as close as we used to be.
Yeah, but you didn't fall out when the band broke up. No.
Like and doing when we did those few reunion shows, it brought us together, I think, much closer than we had been in years.
Yes, of course.
And we've kept in contact pretty well since then. He sent me a really sweet text when he got the Headwind City record, and it was really kind. But I have an experience that I got to have throughout the bulk of my 20s that I'm extremely grateful to have had, and it's great. And for as weird of a band that was, it's sometimes I'm like, how did we?
It still doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like how were we able to tour off of this? or how.
It's probably becoming more cult-like as the years go by as well.
Because it was just a weird time for punk and hardcore, where I think that there were a lot of bands that were just doing weirdo, very left of center stuff with hardcore. I think right now, I think the tendency is the stuff that I've heard seems to be more of a throwback to like earlier hardcore, where it's a lot more streamlined. I think that with that stuff in late 90s, early 2000s, it was people were just doing some wacky stuff, our band included.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that. To me now, the weirdest stuff is sometimes hip hop or mainstream pop. Like they'll throw really bizarre ideas, but you don't hear rock and roll really breaking trends, or
it feels like it's in a cycle right now where it's a little bit more its gaze is a little bit more backwards.
I know. I sometimes feel a little bit of guilt that I'm not out there doing it, But it's going to be some kids who are going to come along. There'll be some 20-year-old kids with some freak band. Someone that we know will play it to us, and we'll go, I'm glad the kids are out there.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it always happens. You know? It's how it works.
Yeah. My final question, I guess, is just with the election and a lot of things that are going on in the world in the moment, are you pessimistic or optimistic about the future of humanity?
I've never been more pessimistic.
Okay.
It's like every nightmare scenario that I can imagine right now.
Yikes.
It's the worst. We have NPR on every morning because we're up at 5:30 every morning because we've got a 16-month-old, and every day since the election has just been one thing after another. Just piles right on. The cabinet that he's assembling is just terrifying, and it's hard to even process. It just makes me just want to. The only way that I can react is just with like a groan. It's just, and that's how I feel. Like every day there's a new thing to just, oh God, and so.
But what are we how do we change it? What are we supposed to do?
I think I think it just forces you to be more active, and just, I think that you can pick those lanes where, pick those things that are most offensive to you, that he's going to be enacting, and then just find ways to actively resist them as much as you can. I don't know. I mean, it's if anything, just to preserve your own sanity and draw that line in the sand. Just. I also think too, just basic human kindness.
I think everyone can do that.
I think basic human kindness, because the messaging that we're getting, and will be getting for the next 4 years from a Trump administration is just going to be so horrific.
I think the key to it with the basic human kindness is giving that to the Trump supporters, and it's easy to be kind to your own. But you have to sort of those, like Martin Luther King did with giving love to the people that were attacking him in that time.
And that's hard.
That's the most difficult.
Because it's just, you look at the ideas on which he campaigned, and they're just garbage ideas. It's just blatant racism, xenophobia, sexism. Just go down the line, pick your ism, and it's wretched, and so it's very hard to mentally try to see some common ground, or try to give any kind of benefit of the doubt, or empathize with someone who sees that message and says, yeah, that's where I'm at. Sign me up. And so I think,
but we can't be divided if we're going to try and
that's the thing too, is that's what the whole thing was predicated on.
Exactly.
Was division and paranoia.
So to break it, you need love.
Yeah.
Which is very difficult.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I can find some optimism in that people will see the error in their ways and see just how bad things can get, or see that Trump doesn't have their best interests in mind whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think that I imagine that people are quickly going to figure that out. And I'm hoping that, I don't know. I'm hoping that he's just, impeached. I'm hoping that he just has such a weak grasp on the Constitution, and just that it just leads to just like a catastrophic, failure and downfall. I mean, I have no doubt that he's going to be remembered as one of the worst presidents, if not the worst president we've ever had.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
There are things that are going to take some real getting used to, like going to the airport and seeing his picture everywhere. Those types of things.
It's been nice seeing Obama. Hasn't it?
And just once someone's a president, they never really go away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
They're just all like, there's always some bullshit that they'll call up an ex-president to weigh in on or show up at, and so they're always kind of there. I'm just the inclination is I want nothing more than to just tune out or go to sleep for the next 4 years and wake up. but that's it's not.
No, it's kicked everyone up the arse a little bit, which I think is good. It's shaking the apathy out of a few people, which I think if Hillary had got in, people would have just continued to sit back and expected.
I grossly underestimated how angry and paranoid white people would show up and tip the scales. I thought that
we live in California.
I know, and that's the thing. And I grew up in Seattle, so it's just the most liberal bubbles that you could possibly imagine. I just it was like a comedy of errors leading up to the election, and I just thought to myself, like, there's no way that basic human decency isn't going to win the day, and then oh, how I was wrong.
I know. It's a little scary. But people do have basic human decency. I think everyone does. I don't feel like people are this one-sided monster. I feel like everyone's probably 60 to 70% good, and he just wrangled the 30% bad out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's what most of those sort of despotic dictators do, is just pull that little bit of bad in everyone and pull it together.
Yeah. And it's people who are dissatisfied with where they are in life, which
is a lot of people.
And it's the easy thing is to look for some quote unquote other to blame, and whether it be immigrants coming in from Mexico, whether it be Muslims that need to register, whatever nightmare scenario they're talking about, just stoking those fears. And fear is a very palpable motivator.
It's the easiest one.
And fear and anger.
They're just deformed versions of love.
Yeah,
because they are all about protecting something that you love. So they are just the same thing.
Yeah,
distorted.
There is this very distorted idea of when America was great. And it's make America great again.
Yeah.
And it's like, exactly when are you talking about?
Was it great?
When
the black people were still,
like,
we kept them down.
And I think for a lot of people that was they're thinking about this like
before Kanye West.
They're thinking about this mid-century, like 1950s white suburban America,
When petrol was cheap.
Your
neighborhoods were safe.
Yeah.
You just swept all the things you thought were bad.
They seem to forget that nuclear bomb, drills were being held in elementary schools. And, so yeah, it's a mess, and I honestly think it does force you out of a place of complacency. It certainly forces you to pick your side, and resist and offer help and support to those people that are.
Make some more angry music.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. If anything, it's cathartic, and it gets a lot of those frustrations out for sure.
Thank you very much for taking the time, Jordan. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
This is great. I love this.
Hey, thank you very much, Jordan. It was so great to talk to him. I find him very intelligent, very thoughtful, very, very talented man as well. If you haven't, check out A New Wave of Violence by Head Wound City. The band before that he was in, Past Lives, featured other members of the Blood Brothers. The record there is Tapestry of Webs. It's a very cool kind of alternative rock experimental album, I suppose you would call it. I mean, I hate to label these things as everyone seems to, but that's probably the easiest way to put it. And if you haven't listened to the Blood Brothers, I will continue to go on and on and on about it. The albums Burn Piano Island Burn, Crimes, Young Machetes, or the earlier albums as well. The later ones have got the more, hi-fi production, if you like that sort of thing. But yeah, those Burn Piano Island Burn by the Blood Brothers completely changed my entire way of thinking about music. So listen to it. Henry Rollins described, what did he say? They were on the Rollins show in the 2000s, and he said, what a great fucking racket these guys make. And I think that's probably the best way to describe the music that Jordan has been involved with. It's incredible. Thanks for tuning in. It's the end of the bottom of it for this episode, but there's plenty more episodes coming. I've been talking to lots of people, getting lots of things going, lots of more thoughtful, intelligent artists discussing what it is to be doing this whole crazy thing. Cool. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever it is. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye.